Well, I think we've got something really quite special to look at. I'm definitely looking forward to having a look at this locomotive. This one is an East German produced BR120 locomotive, and it's from VEB Eisenbahn-Modellbau Zwichau. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm never quite sure whether I get this right or not. Let me know in the comments below anyway. This box is looking a bit tatty, but it is getting on a bit now. It's certainly got some shelf wear, but it does look really quite cool. And that drawing on the front has got some real nice charm to it. Can't wait to get this out and show it to you, so let's open it up. So here it is out of the box, and I really like it already. I'm a big fan of vintage model railways, and this is absolutely right up there when it comes to vintage and something that's quite cool. Let's have a closer look at it. So we'll start on the end of this locomotive. Quite a characterful front to it. It has actually got flush fit glazing here. For such an old locomotive, that's quite good. The plastic is quite thick though, so you can see around the edges it does have a bit of distortion. But we do have these really characterful windscreen wipers, one heading up this way and one heading down the other way. I'm guessing that's prototypical. And we also have this other little piece here in the plastic. I'm not sure whether that's meant to be there or not. Up at the top here we have what looks like a light. I'm not sure if this has got lighting in it or not. We're going to give it a try later on and find out. And then as we look down at the front of the locomotive, we've got this silver band running all the way around here. Very characterful of this class of locomotive, but it is a little bit fuzzy on the edges there. The paint isn't too good. And down the side here. Further down we have a silver grille which has been picked out in silver paint there as well, and two little markers beside it. Finally down here we have another yellow band around this part here. This is looking a bit scrappy, but I'm actually wondering whether that's just because of age and rather that it didn't come out of the factory like that. Underneath though there's quite a lot going on. We've got some additional lights here with really nice silver surrounds and little red markers as well, again with silver surrounds. The numbers there printed in the middle, very clear. And we've got some really convincing representation of a coupling and some jumper pipework there as well. Even though it comes down into this lower part which has been painted grey, I think that could actually just be improved a little bit with a bit of paint. And then around the buffers we've got some nice rivet detail, and then these buffers are actually flexible as well. I really like that. I've seen this on Pico models, and why I like that is because these can take quite a big knock and they're not going to break. You often see buffers missing on old locomotives, but you're not going to have that problem here. The coupling's hanging out the front on this metal piece here which is attached to the bogie. I'll come on to that in a minute. But let's have a look down the side of this locomotive. Again, the windows here, quite thick plastic, but we do have a silver surround on this one, and at least they're flush fit as well, and that is also on the door there. These handrails here have been picked out in silver, not too good down the bottom there, but quite good that they have been picked out. And then we have this little step down here as well, which has got an attempt at paint on it, unless it's just been worn off over time. Down the length of this locomotive, we've got this yellow line, and that actually goes not too bad over this grille here.
So at this point in the video, for some reason my mic stopped working, so I'm having to do this additional voiceover as we go along the rest of this video. What I was talking about here was that the model has some really good lines along here, some nice moulded ribs along the length of the locomotive, and it also has some really nice printing here, very detailed numbers down here, as well as a locomotive number up above, which has been printed really well, and you can see the Deutsche Reichsbahn wording there as well. It's got some windows in the middle of the locomotive here, again flush fit glazing, but it's not very clear, you can't see inside that well. Here we've got another door at this end of the locomotive, and it has also this yellow line going over this grille, and it's not too bad over the grille, but it's not so great at the door. But the doors on this locomotive are actually quite well moulded, and you can see this one has got the handle picked out in silver, but the paint isn't applied that well. Further along the locomotive we have this logo here, which I think is possibly a shed plate just underneath this window, and that's been picked out in yellow paint as well. And then when we come to this end of the locomotive, it's got the same paint problems as we saw earlier. Up above, the roof is painted in this grey colour, and it has some additional parts added on, including this horn and these extra parts here which have been moulded in. They look pretty good though. And we also have this piece here which I think might be an extra part. It's been added in metal and silver, and you can see it has a screw there as well holding it together. We've got another extra piece here and another horn, and here you can see where the paint has been applied. It hasn't been applied too good, so you can see some of the maroon underneath there, but aside from that the grey paintwork does actually look pretty good. Down below we've got this fantastic arrangement of tanks just underneath the body here. It's quite rare to see that on a locomotive, and it's been produced here in this plastic chassis. And then these bogies have got a real fantastic amount of detail moulded into them. It's really quite impressive relief on these, but there is quite a lot of movement on those bogies. The centre part here has some moulding detail on it, but it's not that good compared to the rest of the moulding, and it's also losing a bit of colour. I think it's probably just because of age. And then we have another bogie here which is exactly the same as the first one. Looking underneath now, we have have 2 of these axles driven and 1 axle is actually free to revolve, but we can see we've got pickup from the 2 outer wheels. So it looks as though both bogies are driven. We have traction tyres fitted onto the drive wheels, but you can see this one's come away and one of them's missing as well. So it might be a good idea that we change those traction tyres and put brand new ones on it. So a really characterful locomotive. I really like how this is looking. So let's put it on the test track and see how it runs. So that's fantastic, it runs really good and it's very smooth as well, but it is really noisy, and actually I think that's probably prototypical as well, because these class of locomotives were very noisy in service. Anyway, let's take this apart, we can get some new traction tyres on it and have a look at the mechanism. So now that we've got this model apart, we can have a look at the body shell. What I did think before was possibly made of metal, actually isn't, it's just part of the plastic moulding. You can see that underneath here, it's just the same piece. So that has been masked off and painted, and it looks actually really good. It really convinced me anyway. Here we do actually have some lighting. You can see that it has this plastic surround here in order to transmit light to the lights at the bottom and also at the top. We have this very large metal weight here. This is a piece of cast metal which holds the locomotive down, and then we've got this strange part which fits on top, which has got some lighting on it. You can see the bulbs at each end. It doesn't seem to be that these bulbs work that well, because we didn't see any lighting when we were running on the test track. And here we have the chassis. The motor just flops around inside it, and it's all made of plastic here. We've got a plastic drive shaft and the bogies held in with these plastic clips. So you can see it comes apart quite easily. There's nothing holding it in once you take the weight off this model. And we've got these very flimsy drive shafts, so it looks really quite crude, but it does work pretty well. So let's see if we can take this apart and get these bogies out. So we've got the bogies apart now, and we're just going to change the traction tyres for these new ones. These are actually Hornby Lima ones, but they fitted on without any problems. And while we've got these bogies apart, we might as well give them a bit of a clean because they are quite dirty. These are the contacts here. Just this back together, but I got there in the end. So now that we've got this back together with brand new traction tyres, and I think it's ready to do some service on the railway. Before we do that, let's put it on the scales and see how much it weighs. So this model weighs 374 grams. So this BR120 from VEB, or VEB, however you pronounce it, has been a really fantastic model, I think, to have a look at today. I'm a big fan of vintage model railways, and this is right up there. It's got that vintage charm. It's a bit crude around the edges, but it just looks really fantastic, and it also runs really well as well. It is really noisy when it was running, and you know, when you look up the history of these locomotives, they did come out of the factory without any silencers, and they were just two-stroke diesel as well, so they were really loud to begin with until they got fitted with silencers. So this is actually really prototypical for this to be noisy. There are some limitations on this model. Some of the painting isn't too good, the masking hasn't been done well, so it's a bit fuzzy around the edges, especially on the silver at each end of the cabs. And there's parts of this model which could cause problems, like the drive shafts are a bit flimsy and the motor isn't really that big compared to the weight of this locomotive. But that all said, this has lasted now more than 30 years, it could even be longer than that, and it's still going very strong. It has some opportunity to upgrade as well. The lighting is absolutely terrible, but you could fit that with some LED lights and it would look absolutely fantastic. So this is definitely a keeper for me. It may even make another appearance on this channel if I start to do modifications to it. But for the time being, let me know what you thought about my analysis of this model in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya.